Okay, in Algebra 2, we're going over lesson 1.2, the very first lesson of the year. We're actually skipping over section 1.1. But 1.2 is going to deal with exponents and also dealing with some order of operation problems. Remember, with exponents, exponents deal with repeated multiplication. And wonderfully, some problems that you're going to have will be very simply to see if you can rewrite a form using exponents instead of repeated multiplication. For example, look at example 1. We have w times w times w 5 times. 5 w's multiplied together. Nice and simply, we can rewrite that as w to the 5th, and we're done. Look at number 2. We have 4x and 4x in parentheses. Because we have two 4x's, we can very simply just write 4x parentheses quantity squared. There are 2 of them. Likewise with our y's. Y times y times y is really y to the 3rd. You're more than welcome to include parentheses. You certainly don't have to do that. Now, example 3 and example 4, as we move on, wow, we have to be very, very careful. These two problems look incredibly similar, but they are very different. For example 3, you have the opposite, or negative, 3 squared. I want to really point out to you that you don't have parentheses in this problem. And what's really happening is the square, that second power, is only being applied to the 3. Now, what that really means is you would have negative, that would remain out in front, and then there's 3 times 3. Now, 3 times 3, of course, is going to get you 9, and then you'll have a negative out in front. What's your final answer? Plain and simply, negative 9. Now, thank goodness we're using our calculators quite a bit, and I've got very good news. Your graphing calculator can handle this problem. If you look at the original problem of negative 3 squared, we just type that in. We'll hit the negative. It's at the very bottom. Hit 3. The square button, if you look by the 7 going up on a diagonal, you can hit that second power right there. You can see, just as we have in the original problem, no parentheses involved here. Hit enter, you get negative 9. You can do that on the worksheets, on the homework, and on the test as well. Take a look at example 4, though. Negative 3 squared, well, the parentheses are indicating that it's negative 3 itself that is being squared. The negative is being raised up to the second power as well. And that would indicate that we'd have negative 3 times negative 3. Now, a negative times a negative, of course, is a positive. Once again, I've got very good news. Your calculator can handle this. So let's, by way of comparison, type this thing out. We'll say parentheses negative 3. Hit the squared button, hit enter, and you'll get your positive 9. So that's some wonderful news to help you out. The order of operations, well, I've got good news in this regard too. Your calculator is going to be able to come to your aid. I hope we are familiar with PEMDAS. If you ever are working this out by hand, by the way, the new SAT requires some problems to be worked out without a calculator. So it's important to know the order of operations. We've got parentheses first. You always do what's inside parentheses. Then you take care of exponents. Then you're going to deal with multiplication or division. But remember, here we work left to right. Whatever comes first. Sometimes you're going to see that you will do division first. Sometimes you do multiplication first. Either one, whatever comes first, going left to right. Finally, you've got addition and subtraction. And in a similar format, you can go left to right. Now, to speed up this video and to speed these problems up, as we look at example 5, I want to tell you some fantastic good news. Your calculator can pretty much do this in a very short amount of time. type things in exactly as you see it. You'll say 4 plus, parentheses, 6. We'll hit that square button. We'll hit plus 4. Now the division symbol, if you look right here, the divide with the bar and the 2 dots are there, and yet when you hit it, you'll get that little slash. So you won't see a bar with the 2 dots, but you get the same idea. The wonderful thing is, the calculator will get you that answer pretty much instantaneously. Could you have worked it out by hand? You bet. Inside, 6 squared is 36. You'd have to do that first. You still have parentheses. 36 plus 4 is 40. And you've got 4 plus 40. Then you'd have division by 10. Well, then what? You'd have to divide next right here. 40 divided by 10 is a 4. So this thing becomes a 4. You'd have 4 plus 4. That's how you get an answer of 8. But on a quiz or a test, we can just use our calculator. Let's do the next one. 10 squared, we can say here's 10 to the second, minus 4 squared. Obviously, you'd have to take care of exponents before you'd subtract. But look at that, nice and simple. You get 84. Okay, I'd really like to show you something fantastic about the calculator right now. You're going to be able to store values into your calculator, which is fantastic. Let's do that together right here. For number 7, I'm sure you've done a lot of these in the past where, quite honestly, you had to substitute x and y values in. You look right here, you see x is equal to -3. Please do the following. Type -3, not -3, but the negative. The negative's all the way at the bottom. Next, come over here to the store button. You can see I'm floating the cursor over it right here. It's by the 4 and the 1 button off to the left. It's right above the on button. When you hit store, you'll see a little arrow. It means I'm going to put -3 in for something. Well, you want to know where x is. The variable x, go to the 1 and go all the way up here. Near the top part here, you see xt and so forth. Press that, and you'll see -3, put it in for x. What should I do next? So I want to put 2 in for y, so I'll hit 2. I'll hit store. And you think, well, where's y? Look at the 1 button. Right above the 1 in green, or in a different color, you'll see a y. The green is going to correspond to the alpha button. So I'm going to hit alpha. You can see my cursor is now turned into a letter A. When I hit the 1 button, it's no longer going to be a 1. It's going to be a y. And I hit enter, and I'll get a 2. So from now on, the calculator will remember that x represents the number -3, and y represents the number 2. So what do? I just type the problem out. I'll go y, parentheses, x squared, minus a 5, close my parentheses, and wonderfully, you'll get an answer of 8. The calculator does all of the work for you. Let's do another one. Let's take a peek at number 8 very quickly. We're going to store 8 in for x, so we'll hit 8, store. The x is way up here, number of buttons above the 1 button. We're going to hit -8, hit store, and then hit alpha 1 for y. And then you'll think, well, how do I type in x minus y over x? Well, type in an x, subtract. To get a fraction, hit alpha y equals. Alpha y equals is all the way at the top. And your first choice will be numerator, denominator. And then very nicely, you'll see a fraction with a numerator and a denominator. I'll hit alpha 1. Hit your down arrow to move down, and we'll type in our x. And then we have x minus y over x. Hit enter. Without too much work, you'll see you get 9. So again, the calculator is really helping us out a lot. We're almost done. Let's go to the back. You're going to a bowling alley, and you're going to rent shoes. That's going to cost $1.50. But each game that you bowl costs $2. When you're seeing each game, that indicates that that might recur repeatedly. And generally, that means that you're going to have multiplication involved somewhere. $2 for each game. You multiply $2 times the number of games, and that's how much the game cost is. You also have a cost in regards to renting the shoes. Well, it says, maybe for part A here, write an expression that represents the total cost of bowling G games. And then for part B, we'll have part B over here, find the cost of bowling 3 games. Well, here's A. We'd like to talk about your cost. So what do we have? Well, we've got a one-time fee of $1.50. One-time fee of $1.50 here. That's just for renting your shoes. You've got G games. We don't know how many games we're going to bowl, but each one of those is $1.50. So it's $1.50, 1.50 multiplied to G. Oh, I'm sorry, each game is $2. So sorry about that. Misread that. Forgive me. 2 times G plus $1.50. So each game costs $2. 2 gets multiplied to G. Add $1.50 for your shoe rental. For part B, they're going to say, well, what's the cost if you bowl 3 games? Well, you're going to let G equal 3, and you're going to be plugging that in. So it's 2 times 3 plus $1.50. Could we also have stored 3 in for G? We actually could. We definitely could do that, but it's probably just as close, just as quick to simply type in 2, multiply that to 3, add it to $1.50, and you could see your total cost would be $7.50. All right, well, we're almost done. Last problem. You can see, find the area of a triangle if x equals 2 and if y equals 5. Well, if x equals 2, well, right here, if x cubed, we'd have 2 to the third right here. And we'd have y is equal to 5. We can plug that in. Maybe you'd like to go back to storing this. Maybe that's a good thing to review. We could say 2, store that in for x. We could say 5, store that in for y. And my goodness, right now we have everything set up. We just have to find the area of this triangle. The area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. 1/2 base times height. Your base is down here. It's y squared minus y. What's your height? Well, your height is going to be x to the third. So the question is, could we work this thing out by plugging in x equals 2 and y equals 5? Like I said earlier, you could just plug it in directly and get the numbers, or you could just go back to our front page and say, you know what? We could type out our expression. Here I've got 1/2. I'm going to multiply that to alpha y, and we can square that. Say minus alpha y. That's your base. And then we could say, well, what's your height? Well, it's x to the third. How do we get the third power? Well, look where the division button is. Right above that is the power button. And we'll hit 3. And that's your x to the third. Hit enter, and with hardly any work now, you just have your area of 80. Okay, so that's our lesson for today, and we'll have a worksheet due for tomorrow.